Divine Feminine, listen to me very carefully. Not every sign means union, and not every contact means readiness. Because when union is truly getting closer, the first signs do not appear in messages. They appear in regulation. There is a huge difference between the divine masculine missing you and the divine masculine being emotionally available for you. Between feeling pulled back into the connection and being able to stay present inside it. Divine Feminine, when union is approaching, he is not chasing the bond anymore. He is learning how to hold it. This is not about sudden affection. It is not about emotional promises. It is not about spiritual language. It is about what changes inside his nervous system. Because the real sign that union will happen soon is not movement toward you. It is movement inside him. Divine Feminine, when the divine masculine begins to regulate instead of avoid. When consistency replaces disappearance. When emotional responsibility replaces emotional distance. That is when the structure of the connection starts to change. Stay with me, because in this message, I am going to show you the real signs that come from the divine masculine when union is actually approaching. Why most people confuse activation with readiness, and what this stage truly means for your twin flame journey. Divine Feminine, I want to start this message in a very grounded and honest way, because most women misunderstand what signs from the divine masculine actually are. They are not synchronicities. They are not sudden messages. They are not emotional words. They are not spiritual language. Those can happen at any stage of the journey. Divine Feminine, real signs only begin when the internal structure of the divine masculine starts to change. Because union is not created by attraction. It is created by emotional capacity. Divine Feminine, there is a very big difference between the divine masculine feeling connected to you and the divine masculine being able to stay emotionally present with you. Feeling is not the same as holding. Divine Feminine, for a long time in this dynamic, the connection was sustained through emotional imbalance. You were emotionally open. He was emotionally guarded. You were emotionally consistent. He was emotionally intermittent. You were emotionally available. He was emotionally protective. Divine Feminine, this is not about blame. It is about structure. And real signs only appear when this structure begins to reorganize. Divine Feminine, one of the biggest misunderstandings is believing that union is getting closer when he starts to show emotional intensity. Intensity does not mean readiness. Longing does not mean regulation. Missing you does not mean he can meet you emotionally divine. Feminine, real signs begin when the divine masculine starts to regulate his internal world instead of escaping it. Before this stage, distance was his regulator, silence was his regulator, distraction was his regulator. Now something very different starts to happen. He begins to tolerate emotional presence. Divine feminine, this is subtle, but it is profound because emotional presence is what he avoided before. Divine feminine, when union is truly approaching, one of the first internal signs is that emotional contact stops feeling threatening to him. Not overwhelming, not dangerous, not destabilizing. He does not need to disappear after closeness anymore. Divine feminine, this is extremely important because most divine feminines confuse emotional return with emotional availability. He can come back emotionally and still not be ready. Divine feminine, another real sign is emotional continuity. Before, emotional contact came in waves: connection, withdrawal, silence, return. Divine feminine, now something changes in the rhythm. Contact does not require emotional collapse afterward. Presence does not require emotional recovery. Closeness does not trigger disappearance. Divine feminine, this is a nervous system shift, not a romantic one. Divine feminine, another very important sign is that emotional responsibility begins to appear. Not responsibility for the relationship yet, responsibility for himself. He begins to notice his own patterns. He begins to feel the cost of his avoidance. He begins to sense how his silence impacts the dynamic. Not because you explain it, but because he can now feel it. Divine feminine, this is what real awareness looks like. Not insight, integration. Divine feminine, real signs do not look dramatic. They look stable. They look quieter. They look slower, but they are consistent. Divine feminine, another real sign is that emotional repair becomes possible. Not perfect, but possible. Before, when something felt uncomfortable, he would withdraw. Now, when something feels uncomfortable, he can stay. Divine feminine, this is one of the clearest signs that union is getting closer. Because union cannot exist without emotional repair. Divine feminine, another real sign is that emotional boundaries become clearer. Not rigid, clear. He becomes more honest about what he can and cannot offer. He stops overpromising emotionally. He stops disappearing emotionally to protect himself. Divine feminine, this is not romantic. It is responsible. Divine Feminine, another subtle but very powerful sign, is emotional predictability, not routine. Safety. You no longer feel emotionally disoriented after interactions. You no longer need to decode silence. You no longer need to stabilize the emotional field alone. Divine Feminine, and this is extremely important. Real signs do not require you to stay hypervigilant. They allow your nervous system to relax. Divine Feminine, signs from the Divine Masculine, are not meant to create hope. They are meant to reveal capacity. Divine Feminine, when these signs begin to appear, the dynamic is no longer sustained by emotional endurance. It is reorganizing around emotional reciprocity. Divine Feminine, and this is what the union will happen soon actually means. Not that the relationship is about to start, but that the emotional structure that makes union possible is finally being built. Divine Feminine. This distinction is one of the most important ones in the entire twin flame journey, because contact can happen at any stage. Readiness cannot. Divine Feminine. Many women believe that union is getting closer when the Divine Masculine reaches out again, when he checks in, when he reconnects, when communication resumes. But contact is not a sign of emotional capacity. It is only a sign of emotional pull. Divine Feminine, emotional pull has always existed in this connection. That is not new. What is new, when union is actually approaching, is emotional availability. Divine Feminine, contact can happen even when avoidance is still fully active. He can want to hear your voice. He can miss your energy. He can feel drawn back to you and still not be able to hold emotional presence. Divine Feminine, readiness begins where regulation begins, not where longing begins. Divine Feminine, before this stage, contact usually followed the same pattern. He would come close, emotion would rise, vulnerability would appear, and then collapse. Withdrawal, silence, emotional distance. Divine Feminine. This is not because the connection was not real. It is because his nervous system could not tolerate emotional closeness. Divine Feminine, readiness looks very different. Contact no longer requires emotional recovery afterward. Connection no longer leads to disappearance. Emotional openness no longer activates threat. Divine Feminine, this is extremely important because many Divine Feminines misinterpret emotional return as emotional readiness. He can come back emotionally and still be organized around avoidance. Divine Feminine, readiness shows itself in emotional pacing, not intensity, not urgency, not emotional flooding. Divine Feminine, emotional pacing means he can stay present without rushing, without overwhelming himself, and without needing to pull away to regulate. Divine Feminine, another key difference is emotional containment. Before, emotions would either be suppressed or overflow. Now, emotions can be held. Divine Feminine, this is a nervous system capacity, not a personality change. Divine Feminine, another important difference between contact and readiness is accountability. Contact does not require emotional responsibility. Readiness does. Divine Feminine, before, emotional tension could disappear through silence. Now, emotional tension invites engagement, not confrontation, engagement. Divine Feminine, this is one of the clearest signs that something has shifted internally. Divine Feminine, another very important difference, is that readiness is not driven by fear of losing you. It is driven by an internal willingness to participate emotionally. Divine Feminine, fear-based movement always collapses later. Regulation-based movement stabilizes. Divine Feminine, another difference is emotional consistency, not perfection. Consistency. Before, availability was unpredictable. Now, availability becomes reliable. Divine Feminine, this is not about how often he messages you. It is about how emotionally accessible he is when he is present. Divine Feminine, another subtle but powerful difference is that readiness does not activate your hypervigilance. Contact often does. Readiness calms your nervous system. Divine Feminine, you stop scanning for emotional signals. You stop decoding tone. You stop waiting for the emotional drop. Divine Feminine, this is extremely important because your nervous system is one of the most accurate indicators of emotional safety. Divine Feminine, contact can be meaningful, but readiness is what makes union sustainable. Divine Feminine, this is why union does not come from reconnection. It comes from reorganization, from a nervous system that can finally hold intimacy without collapse. Divine Feminine, and this is the real difference between contact and readiness. Divine Feminine, when union is truly getting closer, something very specific begins to change inside the Divine Masculine. Not first in his behavior, not first in communication, but in his internal regulation. Because before union can exist in form, it has to exist in capacity. Divine Feminine, for a long time in this connection, your emotional availability was stabilizing the dynamic. even when he pulled away, even when he avoided conversations, even when he disappeared emotionally. Your presence was holding the emotional field. Divine Feminine, when this dynamic starts to reorganize, something very important happens inside him. He can no longer unconsciously rely on your emotional regulation to stabilize his discomfort. Divine Feminine, this is subtle but powerful. Divine Feminine, the first shift is internal discomfort that he can no longer escape through distance. Before, distance regulated him. Now, distance no longer works. Silence no longer calms his nervous system. Distraction no longer neutralizes emotional tension. Divine Feminine, this creates a new internal experience. He begins to feel emotional consequence, not guilt, consequence. The emotional feedback that his absence now creates absence. That emotional withdrawal now creates emotional loss. Divine Feminine, this is not punishment. It is emotional reality. Divine Feminine, another internal shift is emotional self-awareness, not intellectual reflection. Somatic awareness. He starts noticing how his body reacts to closeness, how he reacts to emotional presence, how avoidance actually increases discomfort instead of reducing it. Divine Feminine, another important shift is the beginning of emotional tolerance. He becomes able to stay inside uncomfortable emotional states without needing to exit the connection. Before, discomfort meant withdrawal. Now, discomfort becomes something he can remain with. Divine Feminine, this is one of the most important signs that union is getting closer, because union requires emotional tolerance, not emotional chemistry. Divine Feminine, another internal shift is the collapse of emotional denial. Before, he could emotionally justify his avoidance. I am busy. I am overwhelmed. I am not ready. Divine Feminine, when regulation begins, these narratives lose emotional power. Not logically, emotionally, they stop soothing his nervous system. Divine Feminine, another subtle but powerful shift is emotional orientation. Before, his orientation was toward safety through distance. Now his orientation slowly shifts towards safety through connection. Divine Feminine, this is not dramatic. It is gradual, but it is real. Divine Feminine, another internal shift is that emotional responsibility begins to feel necessary, not imposed. Necessary. He starts sensing that participation is required, that emotional presence matters, that silence has impact. Divine Feminine, another important change is that emotional closeness stops being interpreted as threat. Before, closeness meant loss of control. Now, closeness begins to feel regulating. Divine Feminine, this is a nervous system reversal. Divine Feminine, another internal shift, is the emergence of emotional integrity. He becomes more congruent between what he feels and how he behaves. Less emotional contradiction. Less emotional fragmentation. Divine Feminine, this does not mean perfection. It means coherence. Divine Feminine, another very important shift, is emotional humility. He becomes more open to seeing his own limitations. Not defensively, honestly. Divine Feminine, this is necessary for repair. Divine Feminine, and this is extremely important. None of these shifts guarantee union. They create the capacity for it. Divine Feminine, union does not happen because love increases. It happens because emotional regulation becomes possible. Divine Feminine, this is what truly shifts inside him before union. Not desire, not longing. Capacity. Divine Feminine, the first real sign that union is getting closer is not emotional confession, romantic gestures, or sudden vulnerability. It is emotional regulation. Because without regulation, no amount of love, chemistry, or spiritual meaning can survive inside a real relationship. For most of this journey, the divine masculine was not organized around emotional presence. He was organized around emotional survival. He learned how to regulate discomfort through distance, through silence, through emotional withdrawal, through staying vague instead of staying present. Divine Feminine, this often looks calm on the outside, but it is not stability, it is suppression. It is a nervous system that learned that safety exists outside of emotional contact. And this is why emotional intensity alone has never created union in this connection, because intensity does not build capacity. Regulation does. Divine Feminine, when emotional regulation begins to activate inside the divine masculine, something very specific changes. He no longer needs to exit the emotional field in order to feel safe. He can remain emotionally present even when vulnerability appears, even when uncertainty appears, even when emotional exposure appears. Divine Feminine, this is one of the most important transitions in the entire dynamic, because emotional presence is what makes intimacy possible. Not attraction, not spiritual language, not emotional longing. Presence. Divine Feminine, emotional regulation does not mean that he suddenly becomes expressive or emotionally fluent. It means that he becomes emotionally available. There is a huge difference. Divine Feminine, one of the clearest signs of regulation, is what happens after closeness. Before, closeness created internal overload. After emotional connection, he needed to recover. He needed space. He needed distance. He needed silence. Distance was how his nervous system stabilized itself. Divine Feminine, when regulation begins, closeness no longer creates collapse. Presence no longer produces emotional hangover. Connection does not require emotional withdrawal afterward. Divine Feminine, this is not a personality shift. It is a nervous system shift. Another very important sign of regulation is emotional containment. He can feel strong emotions without acting them out, without shutting down, without disappearing, without destabilizing the bond. Divine Feminine, this is emotional maturity, not romance. Another sign is emotional pacing. He does not rush emotional intimacy, but he also does not avoid it. He allows connection to grow at a speed his nervous system can actually hold. Divine Feminine, this is extremely important because rushing and avoiding come from the same place. Dysregulation. One floods, the other freezes. Neither can sustain union. Divine Feminine, another powerful sign of regulation is emotional repair. Before, when something felt uncomfortable, misaligned, or emotionally tense, withdrawal was his solution. Silence was his solution. Distance was his solution. Divine Feminine, when regulation begins, repair becomes possible. Not perfect, but possible. He can stay engaged. He can clarify. He can respond. He can tolerate emotional conversation without needing to escape. Divine Feminine, union cannot exist without emotional repair, not chemistry. Repair. Another sign of regulation is emotional consistency, not dramatic gestures, not emotional speeches. Consistency. His presence becomes more reliable. His emotional accessibility becomes more stable. Divine Feminine, this is not about how often he contacts you. It is about how emotionally present he is when he is there. Another very important sign is emotional self-regulation. He begins to take responsibility for his internal states. He no longer unconsciously expects you to stabilize his discomfort. He no longer relies on your emotional availability to soften his own avoidance. Divine Feminine, this is subtle, but it is foundational, because union cannot exist when one nervous system is carrying emotional regulation for two people. Another sign of regulation is emotional groundedness. He becomes less reactive, less defensive, less emotionally fragmented. Divine Feminine, his responses become slower, not because he is avoiding, but because he is processing. This is what emotional regulation looks like. Quiet, stable, internally coherent. Divine Feminine, regulation does not look impressive, it looks safe. And this is extremely important because many Divine Feminines are still conditioned to associate emotional activation with emotional depth. But depth without regulation creates instability. Divine Feminine, emotional regulation is not a reward that appears when union is close. It is the requirement for union to exist at all. Because a relationship is not sustained by feeling, it is sustained by the nervous systems that hold the feeling. Divine Feminine, when emotional regulation becomes available inside the Divine Masculine, the structure of the connection finally becomes capable of holding union, not as an idea, not as a hope, but as a lived emotional reality. This is why emotional regulation is the first real sign, not because it feels exciting, but because it makes something stable enough to grow. Divine Feminine, when union is truly getting closer, what starts to matter most is not what he says. It is what becomes repeatable. Because words are easy when emotion rises. Consistency only appears when regulation is real. For most of this journey, emotional language may have existed. Connection may have existed. Intense moments may have existed. But what was missing was continuity. Divine Feminine, consistency is not romance. It is structure. And structure is what allows love to remain. Before this stage, the dynamic was organized around emotional unpredictability. Contact would come and go. Closeness would rise and disappear. Emotional availability would fluctuate. Divine Feminine, unpredictability creates emotional activation, not emotional safety. And union cannot grow inside activation. It grows inside stability. Divine Feminine. This is why consistency becomes the real signal, not because it feels exciting, but because it changes the emotional environment. Divine Feminine, consistency shows itself first in small behaviors, not grand gestures, not dramatic confessions, but emotional follow-through. He does what he says he will do. He returns when he says he will return. He does not disappear after emotional moments. He does not create emotional intensity and then withdraw to regulate. Divine Feminine, this is extremely important because before, closeness was often followed by collapse. Now, closeness is followed by presence. Divine Feminine, another way consistency appears, is emotional availability across different emotional states. Not only when things feel good, not only when the connection feels light, but when things feel uncertain, when conversations feel vulnerable, when emotional tension appears. Divine Feminine, consistency means he does not vanish when emotional depth appears. He stays. Divine Feminine, another important sign is relational rhythm. Before, the rhythm of the connection was unstable. High contact, low contact, silence, return. Divine Feminine, when consistency begins, the rhythm becomes predictable. Not rigid, predictable. Your nervous system can anticipate presence instead of preparing for disappearance. Divine Feminine, this is not about control. It is about emotional safety. Divine Feminine, another subtle but powerful sign of consistency, is emotional coherence. His emotional tone becomes more aligned, less contradictory, less mixed signals, less emotional ambiguity. Divine Feminine, before you had to interpret, to read between the lines, to stabilize the emotional field. Now clarity starts to emerge naturally. Divine Feminine, consistency also means emotional accessibility does not depend on his mood, not completely, but significantly less. Divine Feminine, he is no longer emotionally available only when he feels good. He becomes emotionally available when he feels uncertain, stressed, or internally activated. Divine Feminine, this is real capacity. Divine Feminine, another very important point. Consistency is not about perfection. It is about reliability. There will still be limits. There will still human fluctuations. But there is no longer emotional disappearance as regulation. Divine Feminine, this is the key. When avoidance stops being the regulating strategy, consistency becomes possible. Divine Feminine, another important difference is that consistency does not need explanation. You do not have to be reassured repeatedly. You do not have to ask for emotional confirmation. You do not have to chase emotional clarity. Consistency communicates safety without words. Divine Feminine, this is one of the strongest signs that union is approaching. Because union is not built on emotional promise, it is built on emotional reliability. Divine Feminine, another important sign is that consistency allows your nervous system to exit hypervigilance. You stop scanning. You stop waiting for the emotional drop. You stop preparing for silence. Divine Feminine, your body begins to trust the relational environment, and this is extremely important because your nervous system knows before your mind does whether something is sustainable. Divine Feminine, this is why consistency matters more than words, because words reflect intention. Consistency reflects capacity, and union requires capacity, not hope, not chemistry, capacity. Divine Feminine, when emotional regulation and consistency begin to stabilize inside the Divine Masculine, the dynamic itself starts to change. Not because either of you is trying to change it, but because the structure that sustained the old pattern can no longer hold. For a long time, this connection was organized around emotional imbalance. You were emotionally open. He was emotionally protective. You were emotionally responsive. He was emotionally intermittent. You were emotionally available. He was emotionally guarded. Divine Feminine, this is not about fault. It is about relational structure. And when regulation begins to appear on his side, the asymmetry that defined the connection starts to dissolve. Divine Feminine, the first sign that the dynamic is reorganizing is emotional reciprocity, not emotional intensity. Reciprocity. Before, you were holding most of the emotional field. You were maintaining emotional continuity. You were bridging emotional gaps. You were stabilizing emotional distance. Divine Feminine, now emotional movement begins to happen from both sides. Not equally at first, but noticeably. Divine Feminine, another important sign is that emotional responsibility becomes shared. Before, you were often carrying emotional awareness alone. You were noticing rupture. You were initiating repair. You were sensing emotional shifts. Divine Feminine, when the dynamic reorganizes, he begins to participate in this process. He notices misalignment. He senses emotional distance. He becomes responsive to emotional rupture. Divine Feminine, this is a massive change because the connection stops being sustained by emotional labor from one side only. Divine Feminine, another change is that the relational field becomes calmer, not more exciting, calmer. Divine Feminine, the emotional roller coaster that once defined the bond begins to flatten, not because the connection loses meaning, but because regulation replaces activation. Divine Feminine, this is one of the clearest signs that union is getting closer, because union cannot be built on emotional instability. Divine Feminine, another sign that the dynamic is reorganizing is emotional transparency, not emotional confession. Transparency. He becomes more emotionally congruent, less internal contradiction. less mixed signals, less emotional ambiguity. Divine Feminine, before, the dynamic was organized around emotional uncertainty. Now, it slowly reorganizes around emotional clarity. Divine Feminine, another important shift is that emotional expectations become more realistic. Before, hope carried much of the connection. Now, capacity begins to carry it. Divine Feminine, another sign, is emotional accountability. Not guilt, accountability. He can recognize when his behavior impacts the relational field. He can acknowledge emotional absence. He can take responsibility for emotional rupture. Divine Feminine, this is extremely important because union requires emotional accountability, not emotional intention. Divine Feminine, another change is that emotional pacing becomes mutual, not driven by one nervous system adapting to the other, but co-created. Divine Feminine, this reduces emotional strain dramatically. Divine Feminine, another subtle but powerful change is that emotional power becomes more balanced. Before, emotional access was regulated mostly by his availability. Now, emotional movement becomes co-regulated. Divine Feminine, this restores relational balance. Divine Feminine, another important sign is that emotional safety becomes visible, not declared, felt. You feel less guarded, less tense, less internally prepared for rupture. Divine Feminine, this is not optimism. It is nervous system feedback. Divine Feminine, when the dynamic starts to reorganize, it no longer revolves around waiting. It revolves around participation. Divine Feminine, this is one of the most important transitions in the twin flame journey, because this is where the connection stops being suspended and begins to become relationally real. Divine Feminine, one of the biggest misunderstandings in the twin flame journey is believing that union is a matter of timing. That if you wait long enough, if you are patient enough, if you heal enough, the moment will simply arrive. But union is not created by time. It is created by capacity. Divine Feminine, time can pass and nothing changes. Years can pass and the same emotional pattern can repeat. Because time does not reorganize a nervous system, regulation does. Divine Feminine, this is why this stage is not about when union will happen. It is about whether it can happen. Divine Feminine, capacity means the ability to remain emotionally present without collapse. It means the ability to tolerate vulnerability. It means the ability to participate in emotional repair. It means the ability to hold relational tension without disappearing. Divine Feminine, none of these abilities are created by longing. They are created by emotional regulation. Divine Feminine, before this stage, the connection could feel meaningful and still be unsustainable. There could be deep recognition. There could be spiritual resonance. There could be emotional intensity, and still no capacity. Divine Feminine, this is the hard truth of the journey. Feeling is not enough. Divine Feminine, capacity shows itself in the smallest moments, in how emotional discomfort is handled, in how misunderstandings are repaired, in how emotional presence is maintained when things are not ideal. Divine Feminine, capacity shows itself when there is no emotional performance, only emotional participation. Divine Feminine, this is extremely important because many Divine Feminines keep waiting for timing to improve, but timing cannot compensate for emotional limitation. Divine Feminine, another important difference is that timing keeps you oriented toward the future. Capacity anchors you in the present. Divine Feminine, when capacity becomes the reference point, you stop asking, "When will it happen?" and you begin asking, "Can it be held?" Divine Feminine, this shift is profound because it moves you out of emotional waiting and into emotional discernment. Divine Feminine, another important point. Capacity is not something you demand from someone. It is something that becomes visible through behavior, through consistency, through regulation, through accountability. Divine Feminine, this is why this stage is not about forcing union. It is about recognizing whether the emotional foundation exists. Divine Feminine, another powerful truth is this: you cannot carry capacity for someone else. You can carry love. You can carry hope. You can carry patience. But you cannot carry their nervous system. Divine Feminine, union cannot be created by compensation. It can only be created by mutual capacity. Divine Feminine, when this stage becomes about capacity instead of timing, something very important happens inside you. You stop suspending your life for a future outcome. You stop orienting your emotional world around waiting. You start orienting yourself around emotional reality. Divine Feminine, and this is one of the greatest maturations of the twin flame journey, because it returns your authority. Divine Feminine, union does not arrive when the universe decides. It arrives when two nervous systems can finally hold the same emotional field without collapse. Divine Feminine, this is what it means when we say the union will happen soon. Not that time is running out, but that capacity is finally becoming available. Divine Feminine, I want to close this message by bringing you back to the deepest truth of this stage, not what these signs promise, but what they actually represent. When real signs begin to come from the divine masculine, it does not mean that a relationship is guaranteed. It means that a pattern is changing. For a long time in this journey, the connection was organized around emotional endurance, around waiting, around emotional hope, around spiritual justification for emotional instability. Divine Feminine, these signs do not announce union. They reveal capacity. They reveal whether the connection is finally moving out of emotional survival and into emotional participation. Divine Feminine, this is a very important distinction because many women interpret signs as reassurance. But signs are not here to calm your anxiety. They are here to inform your discernment. Divine Feminine, when you start seeing real signs from the divine masculine, what is actually happening is that emotional responsibility is becoming visible. Not perfect behavior, but honest participation. Divine Feminine, another important truth is this. These signs are not about him becoming ready for you. They are about him becoming able to participate in a relationship. And those two things are not the same. Divine Feminine, when the journey matures to this stage, the question quietly changes. Not, does he love me? Not, will he come back? But, can we now meet emotionally? Divine Feminine, this shift changes everything because it moves you out of emotional mythology and into emotional reality. Divine Feminine, the twin flame journey has been romanticized as a path of waiting, of silence, of surrender through emotional pain. But what this stage reveals is something very different. It reveals that spiritual growth cannot be built on emotional self-neglect. Divine Feminine, real signs from the divine masculine do not invite you to hold on. They invite you to stand in clarity. Divine Feminine, they do not ask you to tolerate more. They ask you to notice what has become possible. Divine Feminine, another deep truth is that you do not create these signs. You do not manifest them through patience. You do not attract them through suffering. They emerge when internal capacity changes. Divine Feminine, and this is extremely important. You are not responsible for his regulation. You are not responsible for his readiness. You are responsible for your own emotional alignment. Divine Feminine, when you stay aligned with your nervous system and your emotional truth, discernment becomes natural. You no longer need to search for signs. You can feel whether the field is safe enough to grow. Divine Feminine, this is what these signs truly mean for the twin flame journey. They mark the transition from emotional waiting to emotional participation, from longing to capacity, from spiritual fantasy to relational reality. Divine Feminine, when real signs begin to come from the Divine Masculine. The most important thing that changes is not the future. It is the present. Because for the first time, the connection is no longer asking you to endure. It is finally offering you the possibility of mutual presence. Divine Feminine, and that is the real meaning of this stage. Not union as a promise, but union as something that can finally be held by two nervous systems together